Hello and welcome everybody, it's Matt from PMGG here. So I've got a deck tech here. This is the other deck that I was going to run in the J Controller Magic's CEDH Light month. I went with Warnog and Bjorna, which is the Lucas and Will deck, the partners deck, instead of this deck. I think this deck is strong, but I don't think it's as strong, and I think it's more narrow. There's less combos in it. I think it's less resilient. I think it's less flexible, and I think it gets shut down too hard. But this is my attempt at making Imotekh Stormlord, this guy over here, Imotekh. This is my attempt of making it valuable for CEDH Lite or high-powered with a budget of $500. So, we've got Imotekh. This is the commander, so it'll be mono black, which is cool. It makes the mana beast cheap, which allows you to add more stuff in if you've got the extra budget. But he is 4 mana for a 3/3 Necron artifact legendary creature. It has whenever one or more artifact cards leave your graveyard, not enter, leave, which is cool. You create 2/2 black Necron warrior artifact creature tokens. The Grand Strategist doesn't really matter, but it can matter a little bit if you're not like comboing out. This is like a pseudo combo deck. I mean, it's trying to combo. There's a few different ways to combo. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target artifact creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains menace. He doesn't get menace, which kind of sucks. I was kind of hoping that he would give himself +2/+2 and menace. So it'd be a 5/5 with menace. That wouldn't be too overpowered, I don't think. But it does say another target. You know, it is what it is. But this would just give you another avenue to play if you had like trying to kill somebody with commander damage. But at any rate, the whole purpose of this deck is basically to take advantage of that first ability. Whenever one or more artifact cards leave your graveyard, you get 2/2/2s. Mainly notable that they are artifact creatures, so we're going to try to use things like Ashnod's Altar and Krark-Clan Ironworks to sacrifice those, get mana, and then utilize that mana in a looping manner. One thing that you can do here is I use this cool website called Commander Spellbook. And basically what you do is there should be an option over on the right hand in like where it says playtest, bulk edit, buy deck. I think there should be a one where it says download. If you click on that download, there should be a thing where you can copy and paste the spell list. And what you do is you come over to commanderspellbook.com, not a sponsor, but a pretty cool website. And you click on find my combos somewhere on like the main page. And then you paste the list here. And it gives you your 9 combos, and not only does it do that, you can click on them using your middle mouse button, and it tells you what cards are required for the combo, your prerequisites, which is what the cards are here, and then it tells you this is another reason why I didn't play this deck, is because all the combos require tons of cards, and it actually like this will be fun to play, but it actually kind of hurts your brain. You have to do everything in the right order. It's mainly repeating the same things over and over again in like a cyclical manner, but you know, it tells you like the results. These are submitted by players, but it is, you know, it's mostly accurate. But I would make sure to, if it's like a new combo, if it doesn't have a lot of decks with it, I'd be careful to make sure that you know, make sure it works correctly. If it's a brand new combo, somebody can submit any combo they want. So I think there is maybe some checks and balances. But either way, like I'm saying, just make sure it works correctly and trust it if it has tons of upvotes, but yeah, I guess it's kind of upvoted based on the number of decks that it has in it. Sure. At any rate, this isn't about that. It's about deck text. So get back over to the zoomed card here. Boom. First card here. You'll notice a lot of the cards are designed to remove things from graveyards. So this deck naturally has a decent amount of interaction with graveyard. Being able to remove cards from people's graveyards, but you also mainly want to remove it from your own. You want to remove artifacts from your graveyard to trigger Imotekh so that you get the 2 Necrons, the 2/2 warriors. Okay, so Marrow Bone Gnawer, 1 mana for a 1/1. You tap him, target player removes a card in his or her graveyard from the game. You can keep tapping this over and over again to have the player remove it. It is their choice. But if you do this enough times, they won't be able to fill their graveyard enough, and then they won't have anything in their graveyard. So you'll guarantee, like, just keep milling the one card, getting rid of the one card as it hits the battlefield, graveyard. And then whenever you play a black spell, you may untap Marrow Bone Gnawer. That one doesn't really matter. You're not like gonna loop this, but this is mainly there for Imotekh to remove an artifact from your graveyard, get 2 Necrons, 2/2/2s. You've got Foundry Inspector, reducing the mana cost of your artifacts. This is an artifact deck. Probably should have led with that. This is an artifact-centric deck. Tons of artifacts. There's like 45, I think. So tons of artifacts, artifact-centric deck. If you're looking for some artifact-centric deck, this is pretty cool. Kind of Cheerios, not quite Cheerios. Yeah, so Foundry Inspector just makes your artifacts cheaper. This is required for one or two of the loops with like Spine of Ishsaw. Spine of Ishsaw is kind of a meme. You probably shouldn't run it, especially because this deck runs Ad Nauseam, and that's losing 7 life, and that kind of blows. It basically makes you have to stop at 7 if you're playing Ad Nauseam, but you know. You still would want to play these cards even if you don't run Spine, but Spine is an infinite destroy loop. So yeah. Psychomancer, this is 1 mana and a black, and it's a 1/1 flyer, and then it has whenever Psychomancer or another non-token artifact creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield or is put into exile from the battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This is just a way to, if you have infinite ways to recur permanents like Junk Diver, and a Mer Retriever, and a sack outlet that pays for them, and enough cost reduction. With Psychomancer, you're able to sacrifice them, create the mana. Once they hit to the graveyard, they will trigger this, and then they will come back to the big graveyard with your recursion, and then you loop that as long as you have the Krark-Clan Ironworks or whatever you need, Ashnod's Altar. Even if you can't loop it infinitely, but there's still, target player loses a life, you gain a life every time you do it, so a little bit of pinging action, so nothing bad. Scrap Trawler is another one of those cyclical, getting Junk Diver, it dies, you get Mer Retriever, you play the Mer Retriever, sack it, go get Junk Driver, Junk Diver, holy crap. You'll see here in a second. Anyways, whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser mana. So, just a way to cyclically, not only do you get the return, which gives you the 2 Necrons, but you also get to return a thing from your graveyard, which is great. Mer Retriever, as I just talked about, 2 mana for a 1/1. Whenever it dies, return another target artifact from your graveyard to your hand, which again will trigger Imotekh, and then get back something to reanimate. Pseudo-reanimate. Goes to your hand, but still. Disciple of Vault, another one of those Psychomancer things. There's like 3 of them in the deck, where it pings somebody whenever an artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield. This is mainly the way you win. You do these cycles of like replaying things over and over and over again, and you kill them by doing these kind of effects. Hope of Gearper, 1 mana for a 1/1 flyer. Mainly, this is in here to like protect yourself from somebody that has interaction. You can hit them, and then you can sacrifice Hope of Gearper. Until your next turn, target player who was dealt damage by Hope of Gearper this turn can't cast non-creature spells. So you fly over, hit them for 1, then you sacrifice it, and then you try to combo. That's kind of like the thing. Liberate. You also can just sacrifice it to have something in the graveyard to remove for Imotekh to get the warriors to like start the cycle. Sometimes you need something to start the cycle, get the Necrons to pay for the mana. The sacrifice to get the mana to do the things. You can do it for that as well. But unless you can't attack anybody, it makes sense to hit somebody and silence them just for some value. Liberator Urza's Battlethopter, 3 mana for a 1/2 flash flying. You may cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. This is just a way to make things kind of come out of nowhere, combo out of nowhere, I guess you could say. And then whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana is spent to cast that spell is greater than the Battlethopter power, put a 1/1 counter on Liberator. This effect doesn't really matter. The most you'll grow it is with Spine of Ishsaw cycling. It's a 7-drop, so I guess you can get 7 counters on this. I guess it'd be 6 counters, because, yeah. So 6 counters, you can make it a 7, 8 flyer. It's whatever. It's not that big a deal, because you're going to combo. If you're going to combo, you ain't going to attack them, basically is what I'm saying. This is Junk Diver, like I was talking about earlier. 3 mana for a 1/1 flying. Whenever it dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Again, this is mainly just used for the cycles, being able to sacrifice it to Ashnod's Altar or Krark-Clan Ironworks. You get 2 mana. When it dies, you go get Mer Retriever. Mer Retriever goes back to your hand. You play the Mer Retriever. As long as Imotech's out, you'll get the 2/2 Necrons, which are also artifacts, which you can then sacrifice to the Krark-Clan Ironworks or Ashnod's Altar. It's basically infinite mana, infinite colorless mana. Dauthi Voidwalker, just a very strong CEDH staple. It's a 2 mana for a 3/2 Shadow. Shadow doesn't really matter. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead with a Void counter. Now, grant this is just easy exile, and this is opponent's graveyard. It's not your own, so it's not going to affect you. And this allows you to keep in check graveyard synergies on your opponent's side, but also potentially allows you to cast something from them. So if you sacrifice Dothi, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. You can get lands, you can get crazy spells, but you can get lands if you really, really need the land. If this hits a land, if they maybe play a fetch land or something that you can actually use, or if somebody mills somebody, whatever it is, Dothi Voidwalker, just very versatile, very strong. You've got Arcbound Ravager. This is basically just there for a sack outlet. Sometimes you need a sack outlet. This you can grow Arcbound to infinite number of 1/1 counters. There's supposed to be a combo with Arcbound Ravager. I think it's called Workhorse. That probably should be in here, and I think I forgot to add it because I decided not to run with this deck. But add Workhorse. It's like the 6-drop that gives 1/1 counters, but basically you can put all the 1/1 counters on Arcbound Ravager, then do some kind of cycle. I'm sure Commander Spellbook has it, but that doesn't. I mean, just add in Workhorse, and then you'll see in the Commander Spellbook that you'll have infinite something with Arcbound Ravager. But that's why it's in here. Sack outlet. Sometimes you need things in the graveyard to trigger things for Imotekh. Even if you're not getting mana from it, the amount of tutus you can create with a certain number of cards, there's a ton of these, remove a card from your graveyard. You could kill people with 1 or tutus. I mean, Imotekh gives +2/+2 and menace to one of them. So you've got a 4/4 and a 2/2 that's 6 power. It's a 3/3. If you're playing in a fast enough deck, or playing a slow enough deck, you'll be able to get in there. I've killed somebody with combat damage before. You got Dark Confidant. Dark Confidant, 2 mana for a 2/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Because this is an ad nauseum deck, your actual mana cost of things is very, very low, besides Spine of Ishsaw. Again, I think Spine of Ishsaw could probably be removed for Workhorse. That's probably more combos and less mana cost, even though I guess Workhorse is also 6 converted mana cost, but it's 1 in 100 or 1 in 99, so it's fine. And then Opposition Agent, another CEDH staple, 3 mana for a 3/2 with Flash. You control your opponents while they're searching their library. Most notably, you can look at their hand while they're searching their library. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as low as any color to cast them. So if they go to Tutor, or whatever fetch land, you can flash this in, and you get it. And then you can play it as your land for turn, whatever it is. Opposition Agent, very, very strong. And that's all the creatures, 13. Feed the Swarm. This is kind of bad, but because it's a sorcery, but it's the only way to get rid of enchantments. So when you're running mono black, this is one of the downsides of running mono black. Your interaction with things is very low. You kind of just doing your own thing and then hope to win. Another reason why I didn't play this as my deck for the month. But yeah, so Feed the Swarm, destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls for 2 mana. You lose life equal to the permanent's mana value. The losing the life thing is kind of whatever, but again, black doesn't have a ton of removal, so what we got. Also on a budget, of course. Collective Brutality. This is a way to discard cards if you need to discard things to the graveyard to reanimate them maybe, or stuff like that. But also is just a bunch of different unique modes that you can pick. As simple as target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, or target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose an instant or sorcery and they discard it, or target creature gets -2/-2. So it's kind of a kill spell, a strip of a card from their hand. You can try to look at somebody and see how many counter spells they have. If they can counter, you try to going off this turn. You can Collective Brutality, but then also has that Escalate ability where you can discard a card and potentially get something to reanimate, stuff like that. You've got Diabolic Intent. This is basically just Diabolic Tutor, but you have to sacrifice a creature. So you sacrifice a creature at additional cost to cast a spell, search your library for a card, put it into your hand. This feels really bad if they Opposition Agent you, because you sacrifice the creature as part of the cost, and then they get the thing that you tutored for, or whatever they want to tutor for. Praetor's Grasp. Search target, it's 3 mana. Search target opponent's library for a card and exile it face down. Then the player shuffles his or her library. You may look at and play that card for as long as it remains exiled. You could use this for if you're playing in a high powered deck, you can go get their Thassa's Oracle so they can't combo off, and that severely limits the the potential chance they have to combo on you. But you can also go, you get like a demonic tutor, or you can go get your own. If you're playing if you're playing in like a multicolored deck, you can go get your own Thassa's Oracle to then combo. It's kind of a tutor. I mean, it basically is a tutor, but you're tutoring somebody else's deck. It's a very versatile card, but a little weird over spell table also as well. You technically know what's in their hand. Because you're looking at their entire library. So if you have access to their deck list, you technically will know what's in their hand. But like, I don't know if I would play that. You're not like controlling them while you're doing it. But again, you're searching their library, so it depends on who you're playing with. But sometimes they'll reveal their hand, and sometimes they won't. I don't think you should. Your choice, I think. I don't know if there's an official ruling on that, but I'm fairly certain it's your choice. Reanimate, just a very good reanimate spell. We don't play a ton of creatures, but odds are somebody will remove one of your like mana cost reductions or your maybe Dothe Voidwalker or whatever. Just having a reanimate is really good. Plus, also, if your commander dies, because your commander's like your main win con, if your commander dies and hits the graveyard, this doesn't run a lot of mana. Not a lot of mana rocks, or it's not really it runs a low amount of land is what I'm trying to say. So you can let it die, let it hit the graveyard, that's fine, and then reanimate if you got the reanimate. You've got your Grim Tutor and your Demonic Tutor. These are both just go tutor a card. Grim Tutor, you lose 3 life, and Demonic Tutor just goes to your hand. They both go to your hand, but this takes no life. You've got Defile. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. It plays like 25 swamps, so it's pretty good. 1 mana, it's kind of like a Dismember. Maybe Dismember's better, probably not. I don't know. Defile is just super cheap, 1 black, destroy something. You could probably run Cut Down instead. Maybe that's better. I don't know. Defile seems better, so I ran Defile. Dark Ritual, you want to run things like this so you can try to get your commander out on turn 1 if you can. There's also Jeweled Lotus, of course. Withering Boon, 2 mana. This is one of the very few counter spells that you actually have. And black, that is. Interrupt, pay 3 life, counter target summon spell. It's pretty good. You've got Entomb, so you can search your library for a card, put that card into the graveyard, then shuffle. If you really need to, you can Entomb one of your combo pieces and then like Junk Diver it back, or Scrap Trawler or whatever. So Entomb is very useful if we're going to get combo pieces. Or if you need to reanimate something, you can Entomb at the end of somebody's turn and then reanimate on your turn to go get, again, one of your combo pieces. Kind of a tutor. I mean, it is a tutor, but it's a weird one. It doesn't go to your hand. Cabal Ritual, again, you're going to be running a lot of these, like your standard Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, Culling the Weak. These are ways to get more mana. Cabal Ritual has Threshold, so either for 2 mana it creates 3, but if you have Threshold, which is 7 or more cards in your graveyard, then it creates 5. Turning on Threshold is pretty easy as long as somebody doesn't have like exile graveyard effects. You'll see in the artifacts that there's a ton of ways to fill your graveyard. So Cabal Ritual typically generates 3 extra mana, so it's not too bad. Calling the Weak is it generates 4 mana if you sacrifice a creature. So it's not too bad. This probably, now that I think about it, I forgot, but this probably should run Reign of Filth. It's like a sorcery that allows you to sacrifice your land and then generate a mana. Maybe find spots for that. Snuff Out, again, there's not a lot of reaction in this deck. There probably should be much more reactions. Maybe less sorceries and more instant reactions. But it's a wonky one because when you're in mono black, you don't really you kind of have to just do your own thing, I think. I could be wrong, but Snuff Out is one of the ones. It's free as long as you have a swamp. You can pay 4 life instead of paying its mana cost. Destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. The non-black does kind of suck. There are a lot of black creatures you want to kill that just have crazy good abilities, and you just can't with this. But it is free, so, well, it's 4 life, but basically free. You've got Demonic Consultation. I don't really love Demonic Consultation, I'll be honest, especially when you're not playing. Honestly, I'd probably remove this for like maybe another kill spell. But it's kind of a tutor, as long as you don't exile it in the first 6. So basically this is instant for 1 black. Name a card, remove the top 6 cards from the library from the game, and then you reveal cards until you reveal that card, and then all the rest of the cards are exiled. This is basically like last-ditch effort. You're like looking for a combo piece. You can combo off safely, and you win. But realistically, I don't ever want to cast it, because like, what if you name the card and then it's in that top 6? You just stop and you're sad. Actually, I think you might just mill yourself and lose, Because if not, remove that card from the game and continue revealing cards from the top of your library until you just lose until the name. Yeah, you just if it gets exiled, you just lose the game. You know, I don't like the Mana Consultation. I'd probably remove. You know what? I'm just removing it. Just get it out of here. I'll add something else later on. Ad nauseum, fantastic card. Oh yeah, we'll add Workhorse. There we go. Doing it on the fly. We're doing it live. Is it Workhorse? Workhorse. At least I'll be able to show you what it does. So Workhorse, when it enters the battlefield, you put 4 1/1 counters on it. You can remove a counter to add mana. Another thing you can do here for this, let's see how many combos this adds into the deck. So we're adding in Workhorse. Check this out. We're going to see it live. Add a space, add in Workhorse. It'll load the combos. It should probably flicker twice. Yep. There you go. Tells you exactly how many combos it just added. So it combos with Nim Deathmantle, Ashen's Altar, Nim Deathmantle, Phyrexian Altar. What was that? 4 combos it added? Something like that. 2 combos, 4 combos. It added some combos, so there we go. Value. And you got some budget back too, so you can probably do something else. Alright, Ad nauseum. 5 mana instant. Reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. You may repeat this process any number of times. As you've probably seen so far, most of the mana cost is pretty low. Minus the 2 things. One thing that I just added, and then one thing you'll see later on, the Spine of Ishsa. You could definitely remove the spine and like lower the mana curve significantly just by removing that. I think the Workhorse is still worth it, but I mean, you know, it's whatever. But most of the time when you Ad nauseum, because it's instant, you can do it at the end of the turn before you're about to go, and you'll draw about 20 to 30, sometimes 40 cards. If you get really, really lucky, you'll draw a ton. Not only does this fill your graveyard, because you'll most likely have to discard, if you don't have to discard, then you'll have, well, you should have to have, you'll just win, I guess. If you don't have to discard, you've won. Basically, it's kind of a tutor, super card draw. If you're playing in like unbudgeted, you would play like Lion's Eye Diamond, and then it allows you to like, you know, get some mana, discard your hand, and then typically you do that with Underworld Breach. You probably don't want Lion's Eye Diamond. I don't know. Ad nauseum is a great card draw, is what I'm trying to say. Imp's Mischief, another one of those weird black, like off-colored abilities. So this is basically deflecting SWAT, but for black. It should change the target of target spell with a single target. You lose life equal to that spell's converted mana cost. You can't cast it for free, but still very strong. And Vampiric Tutor, search your library for a card, put it on top, you lose 2 life. Alright, so now we're into the artifacts. So Scrabbling Claws, 1 colorless and artifact. Target player exiles a card from their graveyard. This again turns on Imotekh. You get those 2 Necrons when you exile something from your graveyard if it's an artifact. And then also, it has a little bit of card draw and removal tied to it. It actually has come up multiple times where I was able to exile this card and stop somebody from comboing based on they were trying to like combo something in their graveyard, and you can remove it in response. So this has one colorless, sacrifice Scrabbling Claws, exile target card from a graveyard, draw a card. Most notably, the sacrifice isn't a tap, so you can tap, target player exiles a card. You can do it to yourself, get the Necrons, and then tap a mana, sacrifice it, draw a card, and exile target card from a graveyard. So you can either do it to yourself twice. You can tap it, exile a card, and then sacrifice, exile a card. That's 4 creatures. Pretty good. You also get to draw a card for 1 mana. Lots of synergy, you know? It's weird. This deck runs a lot of cards I've never even heard of. A lot of different effects that are like strange and weird. It's definitely a weird deck, at least to me. Yeah, so Shriekhorn. When it enters the battlefield, with 3 counters on it. You can tap, remove a counter from Shriekhorn. Target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Basically, this is here to fill your graveyard. You kind of want to self-mill a little bit. Mesmeric Orb wouldn't be terrible in here. I think that's the one that mills yourself whenever you untap something. But you want to be able to mill yourself to then be able to exile cards from the graveyard to activate get your Necron Warriors from Imotekh. So that's what this is in there for. And the cool thing about this is that once you remove the last counter from it, you can sacrifice it to like Krark Clan Ironworks and then get more mana and do more stuff. So, reuse and recycle. This deck is going green. Wand of the Vertebrae. Never heard of this card before. 1 colorless artifact. Put the top card of your library into your graveyard. Again, a little bit of self-mill. And then you can also tap 2 colorless, exile Wand of the Vertebrae, shuffle up to 5 target cards from your graveyard into your library. You can do this if you're like maybe about to be milled out, or if you want to like, I don't know, refill your graveyard for some reason. But it also, again, it removes the card from the graveyard, and that triggers your commander's ability for Imotekh. As long as it's leaving your graveyard as an artifact, you'll get this the triggered ability. So that's what you want. Bag of Devouring. This card is I don't like this card. It's in here because it probably is good, but it definitely messes you up sometimes. It would probably be better to be removed for something else. Let me see if I have anything in considering. Okay, yeah, there's 24 considerings. So I would probably remove it for like, I don't know if you have no budget metalworker, but like, I don't know, maybe Pila Pila is fine. Because there are ways to create infinite mana, and I don't know, there's no way to tap. One of these cards. Look in the considering section in this link. The link will be down below for the deck list. The reason why I don't like Bag of Devouring that much, it's a little annoying to play around. Because it's 1 black for an artifact. Whenever you sacrifice another non-token artifact or creature, exile it. That's a problem if you're trying to reoccur something, like if you're trying to sacrifice something, hit the graveyard, and then have it come back. Bag of Devouring stops that. The thing that makes Bag of Devouring good is that you can pay 2 colorless, sacrifice another artifact or creature, draw a card. So it gives you a sack outlet. It also gives you a little bit of card draw. Then you can pay 3 mana, sacrifice a Bag of Devouring, you roll a d10, and you return up to X cards from among cards exiled with Bag of Devouring to their owner's hand, where X is the result. Again, the big thing that I don't like about this is there's been a couple times in playtesting where I could have comboed off, but I couldn't do it because this is preventing me from doing it. So like it's a big nombo. Honestly, it should be removed for one of the other cards. I mean, maybe we'll do that live. Here you go, remove, and then we'll add in Mirror Welder's not terrible. All activated cards exiled with it. Yeah, kind of exile from a graveyard. That's kind of nice. I mean, Slaughter Pack's not horrible for some more interaction. I mean, you can even do Fellow Art. A Resurrection Orb, what does that do? Whenever it dies, it goes back. Resurrection Orb's not terrible. Sure, Resurrection Orb. That probably has a combo. Move to main deck. Done. It's still under budget. Fantastic. I won't be able to talk about it when I get there, but you know what? We're doing it live. And by live, we're doing it in recording, and I'm actually just talking to you guys. Okay, so the next one, Codex Shredder. 1 mana, target player mills a card. Most likely it'll be you, but if somebody like tutors for a card to put on top, you can mill them in response and they won't get that card, which is great. Then you can also pay 5 mana, sacrifice Codex Shredder, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. That cost is high, but it does give you a reoccursion from like an Eternal Witness, basically, which is pretty nice. And again, it will trigger Imotekh's ability of getting your 2 Necron Warriors. Ghoul Color's Bell. Each player puts a top card of his or library into his or her graveyard. You want to fill your graveyard, it's great. Be careful, though, because some decks want to also fill their graveyard, so be careful how you use that. Soul Guide Lantern, 1 mana. When it enters the battlefield, exile target card from a graveyard. Notably, most likely, you'll target yourself because it'll trigger Imotekh and you'll get the benefit. You can also sacrifice each one and exile each opponent's graveyard if you sacrifice it, which is great. If there's any other artifact or any other graveyard synergies, this will take care of that. But then you can also, if there isn't, you can just sacrifice it, draw a card. Mind Stone is just a mana rock, but it also has the ability to sacrifice to draw a card, which is great. Spine of Ishsa, if you have anything that reduces its mana cost to 6, so there's a couple different things in the deck that we've looked at already, and then we'll also look at more like Sculpting Steel, and there was another one, Cloud Key. Cloud Key is the other one. It reduces it to 6, which basically means that it's an infinite combo with Krark-Clan Ironworks and your commander, because you're playing it for 6, you sacrifice it. As it hits the battlefield, destroys a permanent. That's what it does. And then when Spine of Ishsa is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Spine of Ishsa to its owner's hand. So basically, you play it for 6. You have to have 6 mana to start. You sacrifice it to Krark-Clan Ironworks, which gives you 2 mana. It hits the graveyard, and then when it says it hits the graveyard, it goes back to your hand. So it returning to your hand gives you 2 warriors. So you can sack those 2 Necron Warriors from your commander, and you have the 2 mana from sacking it when it hits the battlefield. That gives you the 6 mana to then cast it again. So Spine of Ishsa will then destroy all of your opponent's permanents. They'll have nothing left. And then you can stop this loop at any time. It's not like you'll have to destroy your own stuff, which is great. So you destroy all your opponent's permanents, and then you can just create a bunch of warriors some other way and then win. So Spine of Ishsa It's cute. It's not CEDH. I'm pretty sure of that. It could probably be removed, but I think it's fun. So, again, it's on the borderline. It messes with Ad Nauseam and with Dark Confidant. It probably should be removed, but I'll leave that up to you. Not going to remove it. Not doing that one. Chromatic Star, this is basically just a filter. You sacrifice it, you turn a color, one mana color into another, which you're not going to do because you're playing mono black. This is basically just here to draw a card and trigger Imotekh by sacrificing it, having it an artifact, and then removing it with one of your other removal spells for your graveyard. Wayfarer's Bauble, 1 mana, sacrifice it, go get a land. Another good target to remove. Sculpting Steel, this can come into the battlefield as any artifact on the battlefield, not just your own, any artifact, which is great. So you can copy any of your combo pieces. Clan Ironworks to have some recursion. Maybe somebody gets rid of one of them, you have 2, if you're worried about that. But also, if not, you can also just copy Spine of Ishsaw and then destroy other things. I mean, most likely if you're doing that, you're like in a weird spot, but Sculpting Steel is just very versatile. There's also combo loops you can do. If you come over here and you can look for the deck, you'll look at there's Sculpting Steel, Foundry Inspector, Spine of Ishsaw, Clan Ironworks, another part of the combo. So yeah, Spine is definitely. You can't really see. Spine is, there's the white bar in the way. Anyways, moving on. Sculpting Steel is great. Conjurer's Bauble, another one of those cards where you're basically just in here to put it into the graveyard, have an easy sack outlet, and then be able to remove it with one of your other cards to get the trigger for the 2 Necrons for your commander. But this, you're able to put one of your cards from your graveyard to the bottom of your library, which will trigger Imotekh. But then you also draw a card, which is great. And then you can remove this later on. Chromatic Sphere also filters mana, draws a card, hits the graveyard. You'll want to exile that, get it out of here. Arcane Signet's a mana rock. You probably want to keep that. Mishra's Bauble is another one of those, I will call it Cheerios, where you sacrifice it, you do something, you draw a card, and then you exile it with something to, again, get the Necrons. Sol Ring, just a good mana rock. Bolas's Citadel, because the mana cost is so low in this deck and it runs very few lands. It runs 31. 31 is fairly low for commander decks. Most of the time they're in the 36, 37. This maybe if you remove Spine and maybe Workhorse, you could reduce it even further to like 29. And maybe on a higher budget you can run, like the lands that like Cabal Coffers and the like. But I'm on a budget of 500 for this, so yeah. But Bolas's Citadel says for 6 mana, it's expensive. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. If you cast a spell this way, you pay life equal to its mana value rather than pay its mana cost. Pretty good. I mean, considering the mana cost of most of these that we've looked at so far is 0 or 1. Sometimes 2 or 3, but most of the time in our artifacts section, most of them are 0 or 1. You can churn a lot of cards off the top of your library for very low cost, and then not too nothing to scoff at. But you're able to sacrifice 10 non-land permanents, and each opponent loses 10 life. If it's one of those long grindy games, you can play a bunch of stuff off the top and then sacrifice 10 permanents, and each opponent loses 10 life, and maybe that finishes it. Most of the time, you're mainly just playing stuff from the top of your library. Mystic Forge is kind of the same situation, where in Bolas's Citadel, where for 4 mana as an artifact, you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may cast artifact spells and colorless spells from the top of your library. Now this, you do have to pay the mana cost for them, but with any of the mana cost reductions, most of the stuff is very cheap or free. But then you can also use Mystic Forge to pay 1 life, exile the top card of your library. What's great about this is, like, say you have a bunch of spells and then you hit a land on top. You can't play the land on top with Mystic Forge. So what you can do is you can use the Mystic Forge to exile that land, get that land out of here, and hopefully hit more spells to keep casting. So this is kind of Ad Nauseam, but nowhere near as good. Bolas's Citadel is pretty close to Ad Nauseam, but you can only play 1 land, so it's not nowhere near as good. Also more expensive. Cloud Key. Cloud Key is 3 mana for an artifact. As it enters the battlefield, you choose Artifact, Creature, Enchantment, Instant, or Sorcery. Always choose Artifact. Spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. This is basically just the Foundry Inspector to make sure that your stuff is cheaper. You've got Resurrection Orb, the thing we just added earlier. This is here for your commander to equip to your commander. Whenever it dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. I have to imagine there can't be combos with this. This is mainly just protection for your commander. There's probably a better thing to do. You'll see that I'll add it to this. I'll add this. This is probably going to be gone. Next card. Mesmeric Orb. So this is the 2 colorless mana when it enters, or as it's on the battlefield, whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. There are combos with this that I don't have in the deck where you can like infinitely mill yourself, but it's dangerous, so I don't think I have it in the deck. But feel free to run it if you'd like. Nim Death Mantle is one of the combo pieces that allows you to basically keep reanimating a creature, but then you're sacrificing the Nim Death Mantle and the creature to Krark-Clan Ironworks. So you have like infinite enter and leave the battlefield triggers for both artifacts and creatures, because this has, whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 4. Luckily, our commander generates 2 Necron Warriors that can sacrifice to Krark-Clan Ironworks or Ashnod's Altar to get 4 colorless mana, so it will pay for this effect. If you do pay the 4, you return Nim Death Mantle and the creature to the battlefield. So you're sacking a non-token creature, you get the mana, you sacrifice Nim Death Mantle, you get the mana, and then Nim Death Mantle's like, hey, like there's a creature died. It triggers, and then you get that creature back by paying the 4 because you sacrificed 4 mana, but then you also get the Necron, so you're up 4 mana. So you actually generate 4 mana every time you do that loop. It'll explain it to you in the Commander Spellbook, probably better than I just did, but at any rate, it's infinite mana, lots of combos. Infinite enter the battlefield, infinite leave the battlefield, all that stuff. Witchclaw Talisman. The cool thing about this is that you can actually sacrifice this with the ability on the stack. So when it enters the battlefield, you get 3 wish counters on it. Remove a wish counter from Witchclaw Talisman, search your library for a card, put it in your hand. It's a tutor. It's great. Most likely what you'll want to do is, if you're playing really cutthroat, you want to have like Krark-Clan Ironworks on the battlefield, which allows you to sacrifice an artifact for mana. You'll tap this for the tutor and then sacrifice it for the 2 mana, and then you go get the free tutor and nobody gets it. It's great. You have Relic of Progenitus, 1 colorless mana artifact. Target player removes a card from his or her graveyard. You'll most likely target yourself pretty often. And then you can also pay 1 colorless, remove Relic from the game, and then remove all graveyards from the game, and then draw a card. Most notably, your commander only triggers once no matter how many cards are removed, so you want more instances of remove one time. You don't want to just remove your entire graveyard. That sucks. You only get 2 Necron Warriors no matter how many cards get removed. It's 1 or more. Urza's Bauble is another one of those spin card, or Cheerios we'll call it, where you sacrifice it, you do something, and you draw a card. This, you get to look at somebody's hand. You don't really care what that is. I mean, maybe you get a little bit of information, but you're mostly using it for filling the graveyard with something, replacing its effect. It is an artifact, so then you can remove it for your commander. Ashnod's Altar, one of the things that we've been talking about so far, is the sack outlet that makes you get tons of mana. 3 colorless mana to play, artifact. You can pay nothing, sacrifice a creature to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool, and you can do that as many times as you'd like because it's free to activate. Aetherflux Reservoir. Oh, that's actually what we should do. Probably should. I got an idea. Here we go. Remove orb and then do sensei. Senseis. This puts over the budget, but there's ways to fix it. I'll figure it out later. But Sense of Dividing Top combos really good with Aetherflux Reservoir and Bolas's Citadel, so that just adds more combos to the deck. But yeah, so Aetherflux Reservoir, 4 colorless mana artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. In this deck, you actually can cast quite a lot of spells. Typically, you can cast on average with a good hand, especially if you add Naz. Like the turn you add Naz, if you can get this on the battlefield, you'll be able to play a lot of these Cheerio cards. And there's a lot of free casting spells like Lotus Petal and Jeweled Lotus. They all count as casting spells. You'll gain a life for each one, +1 every time you cast the spell, which is very good with Aetherflux Reservoir because you can pay 50 life. Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. Very rarely are you ever going to pay 50 life to kill target creature because that's wild. You'll probably just kill the player, most likely. But with Sense of Divining Top and with Bolas's Citadel, it's infinite casting. Because you can pay 1 life to cast top off the top of your library, and you can spin the top to then draw the top, and you can keep recasting top off the top of your library with Bolas and Aetherflux Reservoir because you're gaining, every time you cast the spell, you're basically casting top infinite number of times because you're paying life to cast it, but you're only paying 1 life and you're gaining more than you're casting. So you'll be able to kill everybody with Aetherflux Reservoir. Fairly common combo, but it is 11 mana, so, but you can do it over turns, so. I mean, maybe you Bolas's Citadel, Aetherflux is on top, and then you already have a top. Maybe that's cool too. Then you just start the loop. Boom, boom, you win. Yeah, that's why top should be in there for sure. You got Grinding Station. Grinding Station is weird. It triggers itself, but we'll just read what it does. 2 colorless mana. Sacrifice an artifact. Tap, sacrifice an artifact. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. This is 1, a sack outlet. 2, a mill for yourself. And then it also has, whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap Grinding Station. The thing that's weird is that, like I said, it triggers itself. So you play Grinding Station, and it already has the whenever an artifact comes into play, you untap it. So in response, you can tap it to sacrifice an artifact to mill, and then it untaps. It's just really weird, but that's how it works, I guess. Yeah. So then there's Phyrexian Altar, 3 colorless. Sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. This is a way to, if you get like, if you have a way to like create like infinite mana, then you can play this and then get like infinite black mana because you have infinite mana. So then you can, if you're sacrificing creatures after you do that, then you sacrifice them to this for the black mana if you need the mana. This one could be cut. I could see it being cut. You don't really need it. It's just kind of another sack outlet, but only gives 1, so it doesn't combo as much as the other ones that give 2. Maybe you remove this for the Sensitive Divining Top. That gives you the budget back if you're on a $500 budget like this. Sensitive Divining Top, we just talked about it, but this is what it does. 1 colorless to play it, 1 colorless to look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order. So there's ways to like manipulate the top of your library with Bolas's Citadel to help you be able to pay stuff. But then you can also draw a card, you put Sensitive Divining Top back on top. Lotus Petal, it's just a mana rock, a one-time mana rock. So it just helps you cast your commander on turn 1 or quicker. Or cast ad nauseum, out of nowhere. Quarkland Ironworks. I've talked about this card a ton without you guys knowing what it does, but I basically told you what it does. 4 mana, and then you can sacrifice an artifact to add to your mana pool. So it's basically the same as Ashnod's Altar, but it costs 1 more because it's more versatile. It allows you to sacrifice any artifact and not just your creatures, because Ashnod's Altar is specifically creatures, and this is all artifacts. So Kirkland Ironworks is much, or KCI is what a lot of people call it. It's a lot more versatile. So you've got next Mana Vault. Mana Vault is just a very good mana rock. It just basically taps for 3 mana when you play it, and you pick 1 to cast. But it doesn't untap during your main phase or during your untap step, and then you have to pay ping a damage to yourself if it's untapped on the start of your upkeep. But if you have extra mana, you can pay 4 mana, untap Mana Vault, and then use this only during your upkeep. It's not great. Obviously, Mana Crypt would be better, but this is one of those things where it's budget related. This could probably be removed for maybe, a different kind of ramp spell, but I thought that because it's 1 turns to 3, maybe you can do like Dark Ritual, Mana Vault, and then you play your commander, stuff like that. This allows you to do that, but it is $35 of your budget. Kind of like Jeweled Lotus. Jeweled Lotus is $70 of your budget. It is not required by any means, but the faster you can get your commander out there, the more value you gain over time. You can do some explosive turns by like turn 1 commander, sacrificing one of those chromatic things to put it into the graveyard, and then using like a Codex Shredder a Scribbling Claws to then remove it. So then on turn 1 you have your commander plus 2 of the warriors. And then you're not really doing a ton more after that unless you actually have like the combo pieces in hand. But you do have basically 11 power on the board because your dude gives +2/+2 and menace. So there's a lot of damage on turn 1. I guess on turn 2 when you attack. So it's a little cute, probably not required. But you do want to get your commander out there as soon as possible. Agent of the Iron Throne. This is one of those cards that are like your Disciple of Bolas? Is it Disciple of Bolas? Disciple of the Vault, that guy. It's like that effect, but it puts it to your commander instead. Commander creatures you own have, whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So if you have a way to cycle through a bunch of things infinitely, this is another way to actually finish the game. Tortured Existence is a fun one. This is not infinite unless you have infinite mana. But yeah, for 1 black, it's an enchantment, stays on the field. You can pay a black mana, choose and discard a creature card, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, because our commander cares about things leaving. If you discard an artifact with the black mana and you get it back an artifact, then every time you do that, you're getting 2 Necrons. So in theory, you could, I guess with Phyrexian Altar, that is infinite. because you can sacrifice the 2 to gain. So you're basically gaining a mana each time you do it once. You're gaining 1 mana every time you do it because you're using 1 mana to then get it to the graveyard, then bring it back. That gives you 2 Necrons. You sacrifice both those guys, you're getting one additional mana. So infinite mana. So Torture Resistance is good. But yeah, it also just triggers, like I said, triggers your commander. It doesn't have to be infinite. It can just be used to gain a bunch of tokens. It can just be, you can do the beatdowns with that. Animate Dead. There's a few Animate Dead. Animate Dead and Necromancy. Basically just there if like your commander dies. This is a cheaper way of playing your commander. You can reanimate the other stuff as well. Like your Scrap Trawler is another target that'll die a lot. Because it's very good. It starts the loops and they don't want that. So Scrap Trawler is pretty good. Also, the Workhorse that we just added, Animate Dead, is a pretty good target for that. Same thing with Necromancy. So basically, these enter the battlefield. It's very simple. You just don't have to read it. You target something in the graveyard, it comes back, and if the enchantment or the creature dies, they both go away. And then Necromancy the same way. The only difference is this can be done at instant speed, but you have to sacrifice it at the end of turn. That's basically all you need to know. All right. And then the mana base is very simple because it's budget. If you notice, $8 for the budget for the mana base. There are good lands. It's just the budget, you know. So 25 swamps, 1 Darksteel Citadel for the artifact count, 1 Vault of Whispers, again artifact, Bojuka Bog. You want to have some ways to to exiling somebody's graveyard. I guess in theory you could exile your own graveyard if you really needed the mana, like that turn, to like get the Necrons going, to get the two Necrons to sacrifice. If you don't need what's in your graveyard, you just need the 2. You could Bojuka Bog yourself to then get the 2 Necrons from your command there. Tomb Fortress. Tomb Fortress. This enters the battlefield tapped, which does suck. It might be cuttable. It's not amazing. It costs a ton of mana to use, but you exile Tomb Fortress, mill 4 cards, and then you animate a creature, only as a sorcery speed. Not great, but again, Reanimator on a land is pretty nice. Hopefully you can play this early on or on a turn it doesn't matter, where you can activate this late game. This land's kind of meh. Emergent Zone. This actually is a really good land. A lot of people don't play it, and as much as they probably should. But it just lets you do stuff at instant speed. You can sacrifice it. You may cast spells this turn as though they had flash. This can catch a lot of people off guard, and it's caught me off guard a few times, so I'm one of those people. But yeah, just being able to cast thing at flash is nice. You'd have to sacrifice the land, but the budget or the cost, the mana curve of this deck is so low that that's not typically much of a problem. Especially if you're like flashing in the Ashnod's Altar to combo off the next turn. Like I said, it'll catch people off guard, and that's great. Or even a lot of the things that we do are looped in a way where they can be done when like somebody's trying to combo off. You can probably combo off in place of them instead, like try to do it at instant speed. That'd be interesting. You do that as well. Treasure Vault. This is just it's an artifact. Again, you want things to be able to remove. So when you can sacrifice Treasure Vault, it goes to the graveyard. It is an artifact that you can remove for your commander, or if you like mill it or whatever, it's another artifact you remove. Same thing with the artifact lands. Any artifact you remove, you get the Necrons, which is great. But also, if you have like infinite mana, but you need colored mana, you can channel that infinite mana to create 1 billion tokens. Which will then trigger some of your things like this. Whenever an artifact or creature controls put into a graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. Every treasure you crack, if you have infinite, they're going to take infinite life. So that's the end of the deck tech. There is a considering section down here. There's 23 cards in the considering section. These are cards that I was considering, as it states. There's just a wide variety of cards. Take a look through them. Like there's like some expensive cards. Like I do like Marionette Master, but again, it's 6 mana. Some of the games, if you're playing really sweaty games like high-powered CEDH or whatever, or even CEDH Lite, the games probably aren't going to go late enough to where Marionette will matter unless you're like really trying to like mill it to the graveyard and then reanimate it. That's pretty good. So if you focus more on that strategy, I can see Marionette Master being good. But then you'd have to be careful running ad nauseum, because you could just start taking tons of damage with Spine of Ishsaw and Marionette Master and the Workhorse. You don't really want to do that. That sucks. So you have to be... Ad nauseum decks are typically... They don't... Like, I honestly... You probably should remove those 2 cards, the Workhorse and the Spine of Ishsaw. But that's like 4 combos removed from the deck. There may be better combos to run in replace of those that are cheaper that Ad Nauseam allows. So this is just my attempt, and use this website to. One of the cool things about it, if you scroll down, it'll tell you how many combos are potentially found that are one piece away from what your deck list currently has. So Basalt Monolith, this is one way to infinite self-mill, because you can tap it for 3 mana, and then you can use the 3 mana it generated to untap it, which will then trigger Mesmeric Orb to mill yourself 1 card. So you can do this as many times as you want, which is great, because you can mill yourself a number of times, however many you want, to get to whatever you need. It's great. This was one of the combo pieces, like I mentioned before, and it's now in the deck, so it'll change if I update it. But top is pretty good. Gravecrawler, probably another one of those things where Gravecrawler could probably be put in there. Top is another combo with Mystic Forge and Cloud Key, because you can keep playing it off the top for free. So it's infinite draw and basically infinite storm count, equal to the number of cards in your deck. So you can go through this list. So yeah, I guess adding Sensei Divining Top was like at least 1, 2, 3, at least 3 more combos added to the deck. Probably more worth it to just like swap in the cheaper combos to make your mana curve super low, so your Ad Nauseam can draw you tons of cards and get to those other combos that are cheaper and better. More better equals more gooder. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And have fun Imoteching everybody to, infinity. A lot of them are infinite combos, so enjoy.